All right, folks. Let me get everything going here. Let me invite some people. Jon is in the house. Hi, my name is Paul Vato, and welcome to Paul Vato Presents. Where my guest today is Jon Barinholtz, an amazing comedic actor from the Chicagoland area, and we have him today. He's working on some great shows. Let me share this. Please share it with your followers. Let me share with followers. Select all. So Jon is here. Let me invite him up to the stage. Invite to video. Let me turn my video on. Hello, I'll be right with you, Jon. I forgot to mention that there are sound effects. You're going to get all these different surprises, and if it gets to be too much,
those weren't real people.
Normally when you start, it automatically starts out with a little bit of clapping. But anyone that's in the audience can there's laughter, there's poop emojis, I know that you're used to being. Yeah, I know that you're used to being received with applause and accolades, so this should feel comfortable for you, buddy.
Oh, but of course, I mean, I grew up with Jewish parents, so I applauded in every room entry.
I can almost picture that, Jon and Peggy, of course. I miss them. I love them. But let's get started then. Welcome and thanks to those that are in our audience and those that are watching either streaming on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook. My guest today is Jon Barinholtz. He is a comedic actor, improviser from the Chicagoland area, so he's got to be good. He's got to be funny, and he's found a lot of success in the world of Hollywood. But it's great because I've known you since you were a baby. I feel.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen I haven't seen anyone's face for years. But yeah, it's so great, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. When we first met, of course, your brother's Ike Barinholtz. We're here to talk about you and mostly Alan, your father. But I knew you as Ike's little brother. I didn't realize what a comedic force you were. So my apologies for that. You were just Ike's little brother, but you have definitely come into your own with your talents. So
I think in those days, I don't know if I was a comedic force. I think I was just excited onlooker in those days because it was just such a fun. I would. There were the Chicago days when he was still in town there, and I was in 7th grade, and he was doing comedy, and watching that and seeing him being oh, this is a thing you could do. That's awesome. Was really, I knew I liked it, but I didn't know I wanted to do it. And then when I would come and visit him when I was in college, on my spring breaks, and my friends and I would come out and we'd hang out with him. And that's where I hung with you a bunch. I saw you guys all in LA doing it. And I was oh, it was even more real. And there was also success behind it with Mad TV and getting to go to set and seeing that world, and just became so tangible. And I was oh, this is fun and a thing that I could do too, which is it made it real. And then I was okay, well, I gotta get good so I can do this because it's too fun to miss out on. And so excited onlooker in those days, man. It was so much fun to come out here and hang. See all that.
That's wonderful that Ike was an inspiration, and maybe myself as well, and a few of the other, especially the Chicago people, I would imagine, that you saw coming up in Chicago, whether it was Jordan Peele or any of the people, Dave Stassen, my goodness, a good friend of your brother's and yours, I would imagine, because I know that you worked on Chicago Party Ant, which I think is a fantastic show and so funny. But it's wonderful to hear that, and that it inspired you to then do this. Where did you go to school? Where were you studying?
So I went through high school in Chicago, and then I went out to upstate New York. It's a small liberal arts college called Colgate, and it's like it's a lot of people haven't even heard of it. It's kind of middle of nowhere, upstate New York. I went there primarily because I knew I wanted to get out of Chicago because I wanted a different experience, and so I was like looking. I was like, it's New York or California. I don't know why I put that on my head, but that's what I did. And I visited Colgate just on like the most beautiful day, and it was just like a picture perfect campus. And it was Division I for their athletic system, even though they're a smaller school, and I could run there. It was small enough to where I could run and be competitive, and like kind of. I was a big runner in high school and college and in my 20s, so that was like a huge thing for me, and I chose it for that and because they had a great archaeology program. And I went to school thinking I'd be an archaeologist because I wanted to be Indiana Jones, and like very quickly learned archaeology is not Indiana Jones. And then like the head of the department left to go on a dig in Israel, and the department combined with like the anthropology department, and then it was just like all football players who were like just wanted the A because it became like, so I was like, oh, this is kind of boring and not what I thought it was. And on a whim, I took a creative writing class, and I loved it. And I was bad at first. I was really bad, but I loved it. And I think we had to write like 10 assignments in the semester, and 9 of mine sucked. And then I had one that was I think okay enough to where the teacher like pulled me aside and was like, hey, this is what you should like focus on, is like this area of your writing, and it's really good. And she really kind of fostered that. And you you come across these people along your life who just say the right thing, that in that moment I was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I went heavy into writing. And then right around that time was when I started coming to see you guys out in Los Angeles, and like go on set on Mad TV and, see that world and be like, oh, putting this together with, the writing side, like comedy writing side, and then, the performing side. I don't know if I'm really down to do the performing side, but maybe. And I went back to Colgate, I think my second year, and tried out for the improv group. And it's a pretty like storied improv group there. It's the guys the group at the college is called Charred Goose Beak, but it's all the guys who then graduated from Colgate and formed Broken Lizard, the Super Troopers guys, and Jillian Vigman also. They all went to Colgate, and they were like 15 years ahead of me, but the improv group there was really good, and I got in and was really bad but loved it, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do, and yeah, that was kind of like the start of like the performing.
That was my next question, whether you actually studied improv. Now, were you able to study any improv in Chicago at all?
Yeah,
or
I was. Seeing my brother come up, and he left college after 1 year and then moved back to Chicago, and I was in 7th grade when he started just doing improv at night, and I would go and watch him like with me and my 7th grade friends were these like chubby nerds who were like going to like an improv bar in the back. And, we were picking up on most of it, but like really what I picked up on was like the fun of it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And back in those days you had just like, it hadn't really been a springboard yet. Or like, that's not true. Farley had already come through and a couple other people had come through, but really it was like, this was like the heart of like the golden age where you had all these amazing performers that you would see on stage. And like, it was really exciting to watch. I then didn't try it again I never tried it then. I didn't try it until college, my sophomore year. But then I came back to Chicago my summer in between colleges, and I would do one summer. I just did like level 1 with IO with Sharna. I remember Tim Baltz, who I don't know if you watch Mighty Gemstones, but Tim Baltz is in my class, and he was in level 1 too. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's really fucking funny. This guy's really good. And I was like very bad. I was, I think, 19. I was very nervous. I remember I'd have like steal my dad's gin out of the freezer and take a shot of gin. And I hated gin. I take a shot of gin and smoke a cigarette before every class. And I hated cigarettes because I ran, but like, it's the only thing that calmed me. And I would go and I'd do the class. And so I did level 1. I liked it. The next summer, between my junior and senior year, I did the summer intensive. So I did the whole program, met some of my like really good friends there who I'm still good buddies with. And one of them, he went to North Carolina, Thomas Whittington, really funny guy. We stayed in touch, and around May of my senior year, his senior year too, we were like, hey, should we move back to Chicago and do this? And we were like, yeah, let's do it. So I got back to Chicago in like June of 2005, met him with his like U-Haul truck, and we moved into our apartment right then. And we lived in Wrigleyville, the heart of like the improv scene there. And this is before Wrigleyville is what it is now. But like just so much fun. Those years were so formative and made me really realize that like I thought I wanted to do it. And you're 22. So what do you fucking know? That made me realize like, it wasn't like I wanted to do it at that point. It's like, well, I have to do it now because it's so much fun. And that that scene, it's electric, and you make such good friends, and it's nice, supportive people. And Chicago's, I haven't been back in years, but it's a funny town. It's like people are funny there, and funny wins there. I think like out in LA, it's a little different where it can be more popularity. It can be more like it's for more exposure. The end game in Chicago is really like Second City, or like getting comfortable enough where you can like book some commercials out of there. Like that's what a living actor is in Chicago. Or at the time, now there's like 40 Dick Wolf shows there. So like there's a lot of work there. But at the time it was like ER, which was serious acting, and then Second City, and the occasional movie would come through, which is just to say that the numbers, if you look at the numbers of like, there's 5 people on a Second City stage or 6 people, and maybe another 30 people in the touring company that you can actually get paid for, versus the amount of people in the classes there through IO and Second City and Annoyance Theater and all the people on teams, the numbers aren't great. Like, which is all to say, like the people doing it are doing it because they love it. Like the end game is doing it. It's not necessarily the end game is like, I'm going to monetize this and it's going to, elevate me to the next level. And, I think like anything else, it eventually turned into that because so many people started springboarding out of there, and like you saw what could happen. But for the most part, the thrill of it was just doing it. It was the end to the means. And like that was a really exciting thing to be a part of. And yeah, I love my time in that city.
It's amazing. Very well said. I went back and I was on a show called What About Joan, which was a Joan Cusack show, basically.
Oh, yeah.
1999, back in the 1900s, I should say. And I remember recently going through the cast list and seeing all these other improvisers. And it was kind of like, they went through everybody else. And then I finally got my shot. So you're right. I mean, they're hiring all the improvisers that they can. And then it's like, but where do you go from there? And so I think I did the right thing by then going, okay, I got on this TV show. Sure, got canceled season 2. And so all my episodes, I think I did one, the season finale, and then didn't come back. Yeah. But it then motivated me to move to LA. I'm like, why struggle in Chicago when you can also struggle in LA?
Where the work is. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the ceiling is just the ceiling's so much higher out here in LA, and the work was there. If I love Chicago so much, and if even like a tenth of the industry was there at the time, I would have considered staying more. Like if I knew like, there's more I could do. Second City was kind of, I wasn't good enough to get onto a stage at the time while I was there. I got good in Chicago and I learned so much, but I think like the most I learned was how to be bad and how to not let that worry you. And like, just like the stakes are, you're nervous before a show or you're excited before a show, no matter what, but the stakes are just so much lower. And I think like the greatest lesson in Chicago was from the Annoyance Theater, which is, I think, like IO taught you how to be a team member, and Second City taught you the formula of comedy, like A plus B equals laugh. But Annoyance Theater taught you how to fail, and you could do anything you want there. And I don't think I really had like what I thought was funny about me that I could project. I knew what I thought was funny when I would watch things, but I didn't know like what made me special or different, or like what I could contribute, until I went to Annoyance, and I was allowed to like kind of like fall into myself and realize like, oh, this is what I like doing. And it didn't matter if anyone else did at that point. And of course, once you find that thing, then you're like, oh, well, that's what it is. That's your thing, where you don't give a shit if anyone thinks it's funny, because it's bringing you joy, as opposed to kind of chasing what you think is funny. And Annoyance really let me do that there, and gave me the confidence to come out to LA. Because like 2 years after being in Chicago, I was like, I'm not going to get Second City. There's too many good improvisers ahead of me that will get it. And I don't want to be here for 8 years until I kind of like get good enough to be there. So like you said, why not go out to LA? I have the base now. I can continue it out there. And I very much wanted to go out, but I'm so glad I stayed an extra couple of years. It allowed me to get into, I did the School of Steppenwolf, which really like honed my like straight acting chops. And it allowed me to do like a couple real serious good shows, and get to a level where like I really felt confident coming out to LA, like, okay, I can get work now and I can do this. And yeah, so people call Chicago Comedy College, and that's what it is. Like, I had my 4 years there, and that gave me the confidence to know I could come out here and at least give it a shot. Like, you can't predict anything, but I knew I at least had a shot if I came out here.
100%. I mean, you said so many great things there, and if I can unpack those. But like, Chicago gives you the opportunity to fail. People aren't going to remember. And I remember even back when we moved out back in like 2000, where they said, well, we did our show Touched by an Anglo in Chicago and honed it. Then we brought it to LA, because they said, once you get to LA, and back then, of course, you'd have to invite people to come out to your show for representation and things like that. And if they see you and you're not very good, 10 years later, they're like, I saw them. They're not that good. So you really need to get out to LA with the strong base, with your chops, with a solid show, whether it's a one-person show or an improv show or whatever. But Chicago gives you that ability to fail with almost no repercussions, because we're all doing it. Everyone's doing it. And if memory serves, the Annoyance, their philosophy is basically fuck it, just play. So you've learned all these rules at Improv Olympic, IO, rest in peace, and the Second City. But now you go to the Annoyance Theater and just learn how to play and let it go and find your voice there. So that's fantastic. So did you also go through the Second City program?
I did the conservatory there. Met some like just lifelong friends through that too. It was like a really fun program. I liked it because it, that opened more into the, when you get into the later levels, you can, it is improv, but your finale shows are sketches, right? So like the end goal is sketch. So you're writing sketch, and that was just such a thing that was, I felt super confident in that more than I did the performing side. And I always, so much of how, successful you can be is just believing that can be your thing. So whether it was right or wrong, I believed. I was like, oh, well, the writing thing, I got that fucking down. I had great sketches in college. Like, looking back, I'm sure the sketches sucked, but like in my head, I was like, this is my strength. And I was able to lean into that and like really love that part of the Second City program of being able to like, build and then curate which sketches were good and like refine that writing process. And aside from watching, my brother come up and realizing that was tangible, the thing that I saw like on TV that made me be like, I have to do this was Mr. Show. When I got the VHS tapes of Mr. Show, and I was like, this is the funniest thing that there ever was, and to this day I still think it is. And I was obsessed with getting good at sketch writing, and Second City really allowed me to do that. And then that just fed the performance side, because what I thought was like weak on the performance side for me, I would go in confidently knowing that this is a good sketch, and I just now have to learn how to play the sketch correctly. And that gave me confidence in the performing side, and they kind of fed each other then. And then it was like, I was like this fully baked person who was like ready to come out to LA and, again, I give it a shot. Like I moved out here with a show too, with a couple of buddies. That was like a real polished, great show. And yeah.
Amazing. And you kind of touched, on being a writer, I feel, and what I've heard, it's my understanding, if you're a writer, you will always have work. So you don't necessarily have to be this performer. You've written these great sketches. Maybe it's not your job to actually also perform them like we have to at Second City, but at least you know how, and you know how to write for people, but you can always find the actors to fill those spots. And I don't know if that, maybe Rich Tellerico told me that. He goes, as a writer, you'll always have work. So it's one of those things, and Chicago just cultivates that. And again, it's the different schools of thought where Improv Olympic, or IO, rest in peace. I got that from Brandy Stillwell. She always says rest in peace after IO. Their philosophy is that improv is its final product. It's like jazz music, or the improv is the final product, while Second City is like, no. Improv is a tool that we use to make these sketches and make these solid shows. And that's, our growing pains when I put together Salsation, which became Touched by an Anglo, or Barrio. We became Barrio Speedwagon when we moved to LA. That was our growing pains, because there were people that were purists, and they're like, no, we're just an improv group. We're just going to do improv with a Latin flavor per se. And the other half was like, no, we have to use improv to make sketches, and solid sketches, and then throw in some improv to show the people, hey, look, we can improvise. So those are, for those that are listening and wondering what the difference is between, the IO or Second City or the Annoyance Theater, I think that's kind of the basis right there, that Second City uses improv to create their final product, which is sketch, and very solid sketches. And that's why people get hired out of there from, for Saturday Night Live, or back then Mad TV, or any of the shows right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. There is this, or maybe was, because IO is rest in peace, but the idea of like improv is like a purist form, and not using it as just another tool you have to be a better actor and creator. There is definitely a place for that. I think like you can have both the conversations at the same time. Where like, yes, there is a place for that, and that is fine. That is totally fine for it to be its own thing. And to me, I felt that, part of the culture of the whole improv scene was, it was camaraderie that was, fueled by drinking, and it was fun, right? It was so much fun. But like with a lot of that, the dark side is like the folks who just, it's their only release. And, you can get caught up in the fact that like, you can lose the sights of like it either being a form of like, I'm doing this for the sake of improv, or I'm doing this for the sake of something else. And what I said before of like, I'm just doing this to do this. There's a great side to that. And there's also a side that can kind of be a trap where like I know some of the funniest guys and girls in Chicago who, it was mostly guys, because girls usually got their act together, but like, some of the funniest guys who just didn't want to do more than hang out and drink and do improv, which again is fine, unless you're not being honest with yourself. Like if you really want more, like I think it's spoken to a lot more now, like I said, because so many people have springboarded, and people can see it. But at the time, I just thought that like some of those theaters did a little bit of a disservice to like not have like have classes where it's like, hey, here's what you can do with this now beyond, and here's how you can, you're performing in my theater for free and I'm making money off you. I'm not calling out anyone specifically. I'm just saying, like, as a concept, if I had thousands of people performing at a place that I was, getting free performances out of, knowing that the mutual beneficial relationship is they then got experience and got chops, I would also want to like foster that in a way that I think like Mick and Jen at Annoyance did a really good job too, of like, I remember Mick saying, like, say what you want. And if you want to like be on SNL, you should say that. And if you want to, be on a TV show, you should say that. If you want to create a show and be behind the scenes, you should say that. Not saying it just allows you to exist in this nebulousness where you're not really taking any steps forward. And that environment can eat people up like that. And again, there is nothing wrong if you were like, I just want to fucking work my 9 to 5. I want to go to, Improv Olympic or wherever it is, or the playground or whatever it is, and just be with my buddies, have a couple beers, do a show because it's fun, and then go back home. And that's my release. Nothing wrong with that. But I know so many people who wanted that next level, but were afraid to name it and speak of it. And there really just there weren't a lot of mentors who would foster that to be like, here's what you can do. And I was very lucky because I had, my brother who I was able to look at and be like, oh, he uses as a lightning rod to then take to, he was able to follow the fun into something that was like greater and build that and use this as a big tool. And so I had that insight, and I was very fortunate that I did. If I didn't have that as a direct family member, I don't know, I might still be, in Chicago right now, like drinking with my buddies and just doing improv a few nights a week, which is like, again, fine. But I know something inside of me would have been like, God, there could have been something more. So yeah, it is an ends to mean itself, but it can also be such a great springboard. And I know so much of the success I've had out here on camera is tied directly to my ability to improvise. I'm sure you've had this experience, like when you get on a set, and I'm specifically in a comedy show, but for dramas too, but I'm speaking to comedy, and you have the boldness to like tag a line, or like you just have a reaction that's not on paper. You stand out. Like it's the comedy acting world is still surprisingly, cardboard in a way when the cameras are rolling, where you have these great writers out here now and you have phenomenal comedic actors, but not everyone can improvise. And it really does elevate you. And I know it's the only reason I've gotten to where I am today. And being able to have like steady work.
Wonderful. Well, I love the fact that, and you could have easily said, oh, my brother's famous, he's already on a show, he's doing this, let me just go out there and do it. No, I love the fact that you've done the work. I mean, no one can ever take that away from you. You went through the programs, you went through the IO, rest in peace. You went through the Second City, you went through the Annoyance Theater, you got your training. So you came out here and it wasn't just like, oh, I have a connection, let me go out there and do it. No, you deserve everything. Not that you're saying that you don't. You deserve everything that you've gotten because of the hard work that you've put in to become this talented actor, writer, and knowing this. And you've given me an idea. You're right. No one teaches you that. It's like college. You go to college and you learn all these things, but then they don't teach you the real practical world aspects to it. So I think maybe you and I should create a course, because we have so much time on our hands, but we should create a course that actually teaches exactly what you were saying, the practical aspect of it, of, speak your truth, speak what you want to do. And then how do we get there? How do you kind of reverse engineer it to get, on Saturday Night Live or Mad TV or any of the shows that are out there and hiring improvisers. And when I took a 10-year hiatus, but when I came back and it was kind of the middle of the pandemic, and I was on social audio platforms like Clubhouse, and people were looking at my resume, they're like, oh, wow, you do improv, because it really became one of the most sought after skills to have. Whereas before we were almost like, I don't know, the pigs of theater, where you're like, oh, you're an improviser, whatever, you're not an actor.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
now
yeah.
it's like if a director or producer or casting director sees that you have legitimate improv skills, they want you again for even for auditions. Casting directors like, hey, can we switch that up? Or you guys play together. Okay, we got this. We're
Yeah.
improvisers. I may have never improvised with you, John, but I know that we know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's that built-in relationship, even if you don't know someone, where you're agreeing to agree. And like, that's the most important thing. And, yeah, yes, there should be something that exists in the pipeline of these big comedy cities to practically teach you, like, hey, this is great. It's also monetizable in a way where, like, you don't have to sell out, where like you can do what you want to do, because that's a big thing, in that community of like, no, remain true to the art. Yes, of course. Yes, it is remaining true to the art to elevate your craft and get more exposure and like bring what you do to a higher level. So yeah, I think like there should be something that can teach people, like, hey, we for better or for worse, we live in a fucked up, bastardized form of capitalistic society, and you need money to survive. And hey, if you can do that in a way that you're also leaning into something that you love, like like performing, why not figure out how to do that and do it in a way that like you enjoy and brings you joy? And in terms of like kind of like following in my brother's footsteps, I think like I had a chip in my shoulder in like the best possible way, where I'm glad it could have had the effect on me, looking back. If I could have made my brain think this at the time, I would have fucking done it in a heartbeat, because it would have been so much easier and not like made me terrified. But instead, I could have looked at it through the lens of like, he's good, he's made it, and like fucking it doesn't fucking matter. I just have to go and do it, and it's going to be fine. If I had that type of confidence, I feel like I'd be like president right now. All it did was make me more scared to go into it, because I was like, I love this and I find joy in it, and it's like that thing, like, do I not do it because my brother's already made a path through here, and like, do I not do this thing that I love, that I know would bring me joy, because the extra eyeballs that would be on me, and like how people might think of me, like to follow this? And then I was like, aside from his massive encouragement, my family's massive encouragement, I just knew like I would be so bummed out if I didn't give it a shot. And I knew that I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I have to do it the right way, and I have to be good, because if I'm not good, I'll be honest with myself, and I'll listen to. I can read a room, and if it's not working, I have other things that bring me joy. This I saw as the thing that was bringing me the most joy. So I was like, I have to follow this. And but like I said, both my parents, but our mom specifically was always like, she's always the Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss, go on your journey. And it was like, this is my journey. And the fact that it's similar to my brother's journey, like in terms of like name of career, doesn't mean it's the same. And one of the most maddening things about this business, and one of the most beautiful things, is there are no two paths that can be the same. And if it was like medical school, where like you go to medical school, you get your degree, then you I don't even know the path. I was like, I haven't fucking do it, but like, I think it's something like you do your residency at a hospital, something like that, and then eventually you have your practice. But it doesn't fucking exist in this business. It's the Wild West, and for every yes, you may be able to get your foot in a door because of nepotism or familial connection or whatever. But when you go through that door, you are under a fucking magnifying glass, and that gave me so much anxiety. So I was like, if I'm really going to do this, I have to make it my own. I have to find out like what I think is funny about me and what I love to do, and that was really the only way. And one of the worst experiences, but also like looking back, great growth experience was, like I said, at Annoyance, pure encouragement. At IO, I never really felt comfortable because there were still people who were contemporaries of my brother who were now teachers who were just still there. And some fucking great, love them. There were a couple that would just, I always felt like were like, well, this fucking kid now. And made me feel uneasy. And it was mostly in my head, but then it was manifested. There was one teacher, I'm not going to say who it was, but there's one teacher who at the end of like our level 5 was like talking about like, and when you go out from here, you're going to go out, like, you may make a team, you may not. There's only so many slots. You know, Jon Barinholtz is going to get one because his fucking brother. And like said it like as a joke, you know, like said it, but like spoke exactly to my fear. And then also like, I was like, you're also like, fuck you. You're also then like poisoning my friends in my class to be like he doesn't deserve a seat at the table. And that ate away at me so much, specifically at IO, where every house team I was on there, I was like, why am I on this fucking team? It would drive me crazy. You know, when you're fucking 24 years old and you know, on one hand, you have blind confidence of a 24-year-old, but the other hand, you just had like, you're so unsure. And I was like, why am I on this team? Do I fucking deserve it? And I always felt a little uneasy there. Whereas Annoyance, I was like, you know, the type of people, for people listening, the Annoyance theater was like kind of like the redheaded stepchild, but like would get massive audiences, and like the best way I could describe it is like the freaks of society in the best possible way. That was who's going to Annoyance shows. Like IO would be like, you know, an eclectic mix, but like mostly like you'd get like some frat guys because after a Cubs game who would wander in. You'd get like some locals too, but like a certain type of clientele. Whereas like Annoyance was like you were getting the people under the stairs, and you would get to perform for them. And like I was making those people laugh, and I was like, they don't know who the fuck I am. I am having such a good time, and that is where I really found like the confidence to really go. Like I always say, like I owe so much to Mick and Jen for having that space where we could come in and just do that. And that was always a thing. I knew I had to make it my own, and I had to have fun in it. And I tell my wife on like probably an amount that annoys her, but like maybe once every 3 months, I'm like, hey, just so you know, I have no problem walking away like from everything. If it ever becomes not fun, or if it ever becomes like where, you know, the income's not coming in because there's realities of life, and I have kids now. But like, I think being able to like, you know, hold on tightly and let go lightly has been something that has made me find, you know, the success that I've had in this. And I really don't have any fear for it. I just love what I do, and hopefully it resonates. And if it leads to work, fantastic. And if it doesn't, I'll fucking open a pizza shop in the Italian countryside. I don't. That's really fun too.
Well, I a couple things. I feel like you're basically trying to scam your wife into pulling all the, you know, letting her work. So, you know, hey, I'm going to let go of this. It's not working for me. Sure, I'm on a few hit shows, but I'm a step away. I'm going to let you do all the work. And then the other thing is, I don't know why Noah would say that to you.
Good guess, but no.
Okay, all right.
He was very sweet to me. He was a very sweet man when I was there, and like a very good teacher too.
Damn it! I was fishing. No, he is. He has such an incredible story.
I got to tell a story about that. No, real quick. So the way that I like cut my teeth in terms of like learning how to make money from improv, aside from like, you know, just doing free shows in Chicago, which wasn't paid. My comedy partner Rob Belushi, who I met out there, we would essentially like, I don't want to use the word scam, but when we were not good enough, we would present that we were good enough to like go to like colleges and like do corporate workshops, and we're like, we think there's money in this, and we'd make like, you know, a few $1,000, which was $1 billion when you're 23 and broke. And one of the shows we did, and by the way, we still do college shows occasionally. We've caught up to ourselves. We're now like, we do bring value, and there is stuff that we teach people.
Yeah.
At the time, we were just like, I can barely make a team at IO, but like this like insurance company in Ohio wants to pay me $4,000 to do a workshop. Okay. But this is how you do it. This is how you hustle. But we did a show at University of Minnesota Moorhead. So it was like, it's actually in Fargo. And we went for their opening, their college group brought us out and we did a workshop for them. And we were going to do a show with them. And the show is going to be I forget what it's called, when all the prospective students are there, not prospective students, the new students are there with their parents. It's orientation, I guess. And we were going to be the big event. And this college group was also going to do a show and they had a video component. And the night before the show, they were like, and the nice kids, they were like, check out this funny video sketch we made. And they showed me this sketch that was called Jews Clues instead of Blues Clues. And it was a spoof. And it came up on screen, and this is 2007. So put your mindset of the, acceptable, not acceptable, politically incorrect world back then. We're like, that title would still fly today. Like if you pitch something called Jews Clues, you're done. I'm a Jewish man, and this video came up. No one in the group was Jewish, and I was like, okay, let's see what it is. And it wound up being like a 4-minute sketch of like, they did not intend anything to be offensive. It was mind-blowingly offensive, where it was Blue's friend is or Jew's friend is missing, and the Nazis were coming to the door to look for it, and like it was just like every bad. When you're starting out in comedy, like it's like, oh, Nazis are a good source of comedy, and so is like swearing. Like those are like the things you can make fun of, right? Sure. And there are things you can do that gets a reaction. They were trying to poke fun at Nazis, but that's not what wound up happening. It wound up just being like looking pretty anti-Semitic. And they're like, that video ended. They're like, isn't this funny? And I was like, you guys cannot show this video. No one can ever see it. It has to give it to me. If you imagine like you're dropping your kid off at college and like you're like, I'm going to the parent orientation and this video plays and it's just. I'm like, where am I sending am I sending my kid to like a Hitler youth camp? Like, what the fuck is happening? So I was like, you guys can't do it. To their credit, they totally understood. They were like, we're so sorry. And I was like, here's why it would be not funny. And I understand what you're going for, but it's too late to fix the video. Let's just pull it. So I got a copy of it though. And this ties back into Noah. We came back from our show and like late night, one night after hours at IO where the place was closed down, but like 10 of us were there. I had the DVD on me and it was like me and like, 9 of our friends. And I was like, you guys got to fucking see this shit. Like, and they all understood, like, we're watching this because we know how bad it is. And I was like, look what almost happened. Cause I needed to share this. Be like, look how bad this was. Like this almost aired. And we played it. And I remember Noah came in the theater at one point and saw it and didn't know the context that we were showing it because we knew it was bad. And we were all laughing at how being like, oh my God, this is so fucking, like, I can't believe they did this. Like, thank God we stopped this from happening but Noah just sees laughter and like these like horrible jokes on screen and flipped out. He's like, what is this? You can't show this. And just like went to tirade. And like, I had to be like, I know. Noah, hey, it's me. I put this on and here's the context for it. And then we gave him the context, but I love that man for having what that reaction exactly should be without the proper context. And that is my Noah story. I love that man.
That is such a great story. I would love to see a copy of that. And you know what? I think it can still play. Let's put it up. Can you imagine these kids that were in it? Now they're like business owners and CEO guys. You're like, Jews Clues. Where's the missing Jew? I don't know. The Nazis are coming to look for him.
It's crazy. They actually, like a lot of the move out to LA, they were, of all the college groups that we went to, they were one of like the really great ones. And they found success in this business. Like one of them's a producer, one of them's a writer. And I've seen them a couple times out here over the course of the last like 10 years. And I've mentioned the video every time and they are, it's far enough away that they can laugh about it. And they're like, thank God. Thank God.
Thank you. But I love the fact that you and Rob Belushi. So were you guys billed as Barinholtz and Belushi type of a thing?
Yes. At first we were John and Rob. Like we were Barinholtz and Belushi first. We didn't even think about it. We were like, a Barinholtz and Belushi. And then we were like, I mean, what I had in my head being at IO through Ike's thing, multiply that times 1 billion, and then you have it in Rob's head, where like his uncle is known as the face of like modern, slapstick, gross out comedy. And like so we very quickly bonded over that, wanting to like get good and break free of that. But yeah, we were Barinholtz and Belushi, and like thought about chasing John and Rob, and we were like, no, fuck it. That's exactly against what we're trying to do. Like, this is who we are. We're not going to deny who we are. And yeah.
I love it though. You said something very, very smart there, which was you grew into it. So now if I wanted to hire you, if my company wanted to hire you, if my school wanted to bring you out, you guys can actually back up what you learned. But sometimes it's trial by fire. I remember Salsation in the early times, both applying to a festival that we got into because we didn't know any better, that naivete of we're very good when you know that you're not, but maybe they cut you a little bit of slack. And we got into this great festival. I remember we went out to Owwll College in Ohio to perform.
Yeah.
And we're like, are we even ready for this? But we're like, well, we got to do it. And, we didn't disappoint. I think sometimes we forget how good we are sometimes coming from Chicago, where even on your worst day, you're still pretty damn good because you're just following the rules of improv, the yes and. So I think
totally. I mean, yeah, when you're in the company of what I considered like the people I came up with in Chicago, the ones that went on to make it big and the ones that like just stayed there or went back to their hometown or whatever, they were all the funniest people I knew. And they were so fucking talented. And when you're surrounded by that, you're right. You don't realize, you don't have that perspective of like, well, what happens if you move me over here? Like, I'm not ready because I'm not as funny as, Stacy in my group or Bill in my group. Like, I can't do what they do. But then like you go there and like, oh, even if you can do like 1/10 of what they do, it still blows people away. And you're right. It's a trial by fire thing. And it feels like you feel like a little bit of a pirate that you're like, you came in and you got the loot and like you did your thing. Like, did I bring value? But like you bring value and then you get better at bringing more value, like you get better.
Wonderful. Well, I remember seeing that back in the day, John and Rob, and thinking like, what a great team. So did you guys come out to LA together? And for those that don't know, for those of us that just joined us, I'm Paul Vato. This is Paul Vato Presents. And my guest today is Jon Barinholtz, who came up in Chicago and studied improv and is now in LA. And I want to touch on some of the shows that you're doing right now. But you and Rob Belushi, of course, his family's an icon. His dad's famous, of course, but his uncle being Jon Belushi, there must have been so much weight to that. And then with your brother Ike Barinholtz. But no, you guys deserve everything that you've gotten because you guys are so massively talented. You've come into that. You learned, you studied, and here you are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, we bonded over that, having that in common, and kind of that big hurdle we would have to, like, it's that beast that you have to slay before you continue on the next part of your journey, because you can't deny it. You have to go through it. And we bonded over that. Rob trained me at Second City. I was a host. Host is like a fancy term for like you seat the people before the show and like you clean up vomit when drunk people vomit. Like you're not like on stage hosting, but you get to watch the show 7 nights a week, and it's college. It's invaluable to see like how the best performers in your industry are doing it every single night and making it fresh for them, and how they can at once be robotic and do the same thing and also make it slightly different and nuanced and feel fresh. So like you learn how to be a performer by watching first. But Rob trained me. We became fast friends. We went through Annoyance together, and he was ahead of me in conservatory and ahead of me at IO, I think. We had a 2-man out in IO, like my last year there, that was just so much fun. And we got good. We just got good, and it was the first time I remember being in a show at IO being like, fuck it, I know it's okay now. Like, I know it's okay. I had my partner with me, and like, it was good. And I moved out about a year before him. Was it a year? Yeah, I moved out about a year before him. I came out with these two guys, Nick Ehart and Jamie Hodgson. And we came out with a show that we wrote and created in Chicago called Tommy's Place. Killed in Chicago. Brought it out here. I was like, all right, it's going to kill. Oh, by the way, I should say, in Chicago, you don't have to promote your shows. Like, people come to theaters. In LA, it doesn't happen. Like, every person that's in that theater is there because you invited them, and they're probably annoyed to be there. So like the first weekend we had sold out house because all our friends, we had our friends get their friends, all that stuff. Then from then on out, I think we had maybe like 10 people over the course of the 6-week run. I was like, oh, fuck. This isn't going to be like, you're out, you got your show, you're ready to go. It's like, it was a long slug. And when Rob came, I came out in like August or July.
What year?
July of 2009, right when everything crashed or after the crash. No one was hiring. It was a horrible time. I knocked every door from Fairfax to Highland on Melrose for work. And the last door that opened was Mozza. And they just opened up their takeout, Mozza to go. And I got a job in the kitchen there. And thank God I got that, because I was like weeks away from having to move back home. And I got that job, and it gave me stability. That was my night job. I got a day job working for an Armenian home health agency doing their books. And and those two allowed me to survive. Rob came out like 6 months later, 7 months later. We re-upped our 2-man and did a show at the Comedy Central stage. It was fucking great. I had another 2-man show with another friend at the time, and that went really well, and just was able to like get some representation and got a little small walk-on thing to a co-star on Parks and Rec was the first thing. It was like a one-line thing. And that I started stringing together some co-star one-line parts on various sitcoms from there. And I then had to learn the on-camera world very quickly, because that's one that, like, if you fuck up on that, word gets out, you're not ready. And you can go into a waiting line of another fucking 5 years or 10 years or never again. And I was okay in the first one. I was bad in the second one. Hayes MacArthur was on the show, and I remember he was buddies with the producers. Producers were nice enough to trust me with this role. It was a C-. It wasn't an F, but like, I went in being like, you got to kill these little ones at first. And it was a C-. And I was like, oh, I didn't kill it for them. It was still usable. But I was so nervous. And like, I was like, I had to fucking quickly adjust to that. And luckily I did. I had some really good mentors out here. Like, Bob Odenkirk was my mentor when I first moved out here. And he gave me a lot of confidence again on the writing side. And then he dusted off the sketch comedy shoes, and I went on tour with him for a little bit, and that like made me settle and be like, it's okay. And was able to start getting a little bit more steady work.
What was the Bob Odenkirk? Was it his show? Was it his sketch show? You were part of the ensemble, or what was it?
My friend Mort Burke, another really funny comedian, he came out around the same time, also worked at Mozza. At one point, Mozza, which is a very high-end restaurant in LA for people who don't know, their to-go, if you went into the kitchen, it was 7 guys from Oaxaca, Mexico, and 7 comedy nerds from Chicago. Like, that's who the kitchen was made up of.
I was going to bring that up. I was kind of like, I didn't realize that you were Mexican, working in a...
Hey, honorary after working there. Like, I still talk to some of those guys. They're great dudes. They're still there. They're fucking awesome. But Mort and I had a sketch show that we did, and Bob came and saw it and loved it and was like, hey, we should write. So we were like, okay. And we would go to Bob's office, every week for a couple days a week. And we just write sketches from him or with him. And he had stuff in the chamber that just was like, he's like, I've been thinking about a sketch that it's like Glengarry Glen Ross, but instead of like high-end sales, it's all penny stocks. So like the scale of it was all like $1 to $2 of like instead of talking about like getting $1,000 on the or $100,000 on the board, it was all like, I made $3 today, and it was like just losers. And like he had these things in the chamber that he'd been, I think, like percolating since the end of Mr. Show, and like he and this is like before Breaking Bad. This is before everything, his next chapter, which is insane now. But like he mentored us and kind of came out of like comedy. I wouldn't want to say retirement because he was always working, but like sketch comedy. And we did a live show with him. And we had a couple other buddies that we pulled in from Chicago on it that were funny, that could play just like, they were just like, designated hitters. Essentially, we knew we could play certain roles, and we did a couple comedy fests with it. We did it in LA. It was amazing. I got to write and learn how to write. That's when I stayed in college, and I thought I was good. Like, then I was like, oh, I wasn't. Then he taught me how to be an amazing sketch writer and just an amazing writer. I'm not saying I'm an amazing writer. He is. And he taught me, here's what you have to do to get there. And he gave me the simplest piece of advice. And he said, every day you write something. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's easy. And then you start doing it and like, oh no, it's very hard. But it didn't fucking matter if that was one line or a sketch or a scene or whatever it was. Like, every day just write. And to this day, I don't want to say I do every day, but like I probably hit about 300 days of the year where I just at least get something out. And like, emails don't count.
Does it count if you're writing on your phone? Because I always feel like people, or do you have to put pen to paper or?
No, like the notes in the phone. Yes. Like, yes. Even if it's like, yes. I mean, multiple times where I've been sitting in a waiting room and I'm like, oh, that's a funny idea. Or this is something I want to capture. And I would write it down and like, yeah, on the notes pad right there and bring it out.
Because I've got hundreds, probably thousands of ideas that, they pop in your head, you write it down, like, this is a funny premise. And then, now when do we find the time to flesh it out? But that's wonderful, Jon. I think it's all such great advice. And I could see you becoming a mentor to others and passing on all that wonderful information. But I didn't know this. Apparently, we must have just missed each other, because in 2009, at the bottom of the market, we had this great opportunity to move out to Las Vegas.
Yes.
So we just missed each other as you got to LA. I was going, but I was already married by then. So I'd already been, kind of separated from a lot of.
I remember when you went to Vegas. I remember because just burned into my head of coming out here was like, it was like, oh yeah, I would hang out with you and my brother and Stassen and Hayes. I would hang out with those guys and like Scotty MacArthur, and I'd come out here. And I remember coming out here and Ike's like, Vato's moving to Vegas. And I was like, oh, fuck.
What timing? What timing? Well, I miss you guys, man. I miss you. I miss, of course, your brother. We chat every now and then, but it's not as often, as I'd like. But I get it, man. You guys, not only do you have these great careers going, but you also have a family. Because I know Ike's married, has a couple of kids. And when did you get married? Because I didn't even know you were old enough to get married, buddy.
I got married in 2016. I met my wife at Mocha. I was waiting tables, and she took a summer there before her last summer of grad school. It was like her last fuck off job, and she's amazing. She does neuropsych testing for children, and there's like neurological assessments and just like really good work, which allows me to do like the goof off work. I feel like it balances out. Like, she's giving enough to society that I can go fuck around. But yeah, been married, had our first kid who will be 3 years old in 2 weeks. And then had a girl, and then we had a boy in February on Ike's birthday, actually. And our boy will be 7 months in yesterday.
Amazing. Wait, so you have two?
Two. We have two.
You have a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl, yeah.
So we got to start training this kid up, for improv.
Yes. Yes.
And the girl too, of course.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm saying.
She'll be the one. She's the one she's funny. She is funny.
But isn't that funny that you kind of went through what Jim Belushi went with John Belushi, or maybe what Bill Murray's brothers might have gone through. You're going through that, what Jim went through, and then your kids will go through what Rob Belushi's gone through. Because he's got a famous father and a famous uncle. But it's all cyclical, my friend. I think
Yeah. And hopefully, I handle myself better than Jim Belushi.
I've got some stories. No,
me too.
And I know that maybe we're running a little bit out of time here, but
Okay.
your dad, Alan, well, your parents, Alan and Peggy, just wonderful people. You probably remember this, but I gave your dad one of my original headshot, which was black and white, and I think I was like that, like you
Oh, you
wouldn't
absolutely
dare
was.
use it now. And I remember that he kept it in his office in Chicago, and I remember Ike maybe went home to visit, and he goes, "Why is Vato's headshot in your office?"
I worked in the law office, so I saw that headshot all the time. That was my first job in Chicago. Was I did phones for that firm, and in my dad's office, there you were, dude.
I
I got to
was,
tell you something. I got to tell you something crazy about my dad. I got to tell you something crazy. You don't know.
besides the fact that he was in a movie.
Yeah, he was. Yes, he was. He was in The Chase, directed by Adam Rifkin, who's our cousin. He plays a cop who like kind of goes like this. But dude, I'll tell you something even crazier. He, him and my mom moving out here, yes, to be closer to the grandchildren. But my dad, this past February through April, was out in LA filming. He got cast as a series regular on a show that is going to come out, I think, in like a few months. And it's a new Amazon show. They needed an unknown with real life legal experience. And a friend of a friend who like worked at the satellite casting office out of Chicago was like, "Hey, I think I saw Alan Barinholtz do improv with his sons once. And I think I remember he was an actor back in the 70s, but then gave it up to go to law school. Should we call him in?" And he came out last Thanksgiving to for Thanksgiving because my parents live in the Midwest still. They come out every year. My brother and I put him on tape. We finished the tape. We were like, "She's pretty fucking good." He sent it in. An EP of the show, who's a buddy of ours, like reached out and was like, "Hey, your dad's good. We think he's gonna get it." We were like, "No way." He fucking got it. And like, I haven't seen it yet, but we've heard from the EP and like some other folks that like did a pretty good job. And yeah, dude, so my dad's gonna move out here and like he's gonna act. He's semi or retired now from the law business, and like they were gonna like kind of enjoy their golden years on our, they have a farm in Ohio. They left Chicago, and that was going to be it. And now they've put the farm in the market. They've bought a place out here, and their golden years will be in LA with like my mom, gardening, and my dad going to like 200 South La Brea for Expedia commercials.
That is brilliant. I almost want to say reverse nepotism, but I once again, I think the Barinholtz men deserve everything that they have. It's not like it was just handed to your dad. You still put him on tape. He still got it himself. So
I
I don't know.
involved. Like, yeah, this was like they just cast him as an unknown out of Chicago, and
Can you make a call for me and see if he'll do Paul Vato Presents? Because to be honest, he's the Barinholtz I want to talk to.
he would do it. He would do it in a heartbeat. You may have to fly here to show him how to do the tech setup. That's the only thing. He can barely FaceTime, Vato. He can barely FaceTime.
That's why I think I've got a new rule. I'm only interviewing younger people, such as yourself, because it wasn't like we even had to do the green room. On Fireside here, there's a green room where I can show you how it works. You're like, yeah, I got it. Like, if people that are younger just instantly get it. You know how tech works.
Yeah.
A funny thing about my headshot as well.
Yeah.
It also used to hang at the Old Town Ale House. It was the first photo all the way to the far right behind the bar, where they had headshots. And I was walking in Los Feliz. I was walking to a bar. I forget which bar it was. The Wilderness Bar. I forget what it's called out there.
Oh, yeah.
I was walking and I'm crossing the street and this young lady's walking. She goes, "Paul Vato." And I go, "That's right." And I'm like, "How are you?" She goes, "You don't know me." I go, "Oh, okay." I go, "How do you know me?" And she goes, "I drink at the Old Town Ale House, and every 3-4 times a week, I'm sitting there staring at your headshot."
Dude, that's so funny. First of all, legendary to have your headshot up, and like there's no cooler bar in the world. That's so fucking funny. That's that's so great, man. Oh God,
man, thank you. A couple more things. I'm going to ask for your final thoughts, but I'm also something new that I've been kind of doing is, what do you think would be a good title for this episode? Normally, of course, I like to put your name out there, but is there something that you took away from this? Is there a good, not to put you on the spot, you can always, DM me later, but if you have a good idea for a title for this show.
Huh. God, I just talked about all the improv training I had, and now I can't think of a fucking thing. I don't know. I mean, to me, the most important thing that I think that I took away from just at least talking was maybe just how like you really have to be in this type of business for your own fun, and it has to be fun. Like you have to find your own fun. Is that it? Is that it?
Find your own fun. That is genius. It took us a second to get there, but I put you on the spot.
Well, and before we go, I do want to. Obviously, I'm on a show right now. I want to talk about real quick American Auto.
Of course, I've got plenty of time. But of course, I've just had so much fun talking to you.
Yes, I know. This is what happens when you see an old friend and you catch up. This is the best.
We need to talk about business. The shows that you're on, the shows that people can still see, like Chicago Party Ant. Yes. But you're on a new show called American Auto?
Yes, American Auto. It's on NBC. We're about to start our second season a week from today. It's so funny. It's from the same creator as Superstore. And I was on Superstore. I came in as like a one-off role in the first season. And I was lucky enough to, I think thanks so much to improv, kind of like carve out a bit bigger of a role in the second season, and then a pretty steady role from season 3 and on. And love that show. It was like a family, everyone involved, amazing cast and crew. The creator was Justin Spitzer. He came to me like the second to last season of Superstore. We didn't know it was the second to last season. And he was like, hey, I have this other pilot. I think you'd be fun for one of the roles. I was like, he could have stopped talking right there. I was like, anything he would do, I'm in. I love him. And it was kind of a reverse Superstore. If Superstore is like the lives of the workers, like blue collar workers in a big box store, whose everyday lives are affected by the nameless people at corporate. This show is the nameless people at corporate, and showing that in Superstore, I think they're like, well, the nameless people at least know what's going on. They're competent, so they wouldn't be actively making our lives bad. And then you see this side of things. It's in the auto industry, so different industry, but you see how this world operates, and it's of course they're not competent. They're not incompetent. They're just it's just showing how in this warped again version of capitalism that we're in, how you can so easily fail upwards once you're in the machine. And it's a bunch of people who have just failed upwards and run a multi-billion-dollar company, and that's very much on the brink. The auto industry is as a perfect, metaphor for where we're at with this the divide in technology and, grasping onto the old and trying to embrace the new. And this show is just so good. And I'm so proud of it. I'm so happy it exists. We had 10 episodes last season. We get 13 this season, maybe 5 more. And so maybe 18 total. And the cast is unreal. Anna Gasteyer is the lead. She plays the CEO. I talk about nepotism. I play the great grandson of the company founder. It's Payne Automotive. I'm Wesley Payne. Michael Benjamin Washington is one of the best actors I've ever seen. He's been on 30 Rock. He plays the tech guy. You have Humphrey Carr. You have Harriet Dyer. You have Ty White. You have Ex Mayo. Unreal cast, so much fun. And I hate doing PR, and if I haven't expressed it today, Vato, while I love performing, I love talking to friends. I love coming on something like this. In terms of PR blitz, I hate it. I know that I'm good at it, but I hate it. I know that I can be on a talk show and do that, but I talked to my reps long ago. I was like, I don't want to do for PR for things I'm involved with that I don't love. I was like, do a full blast for American Auto because I love the show and I will talk about it to anyone who will listen. I want to scream it to the rooftops. yeah, it's really great. It comes, like I said, it comes back later this fall, or maybe early winter is when it will air. So check it out. It's on right now. It's available on Hulu and Peacock, and it's just really funny. It very much kind of like Veep meets Superstore is the way to put it. Yeah.
I love it. It's almost surreal, because I've gotten so used to seeing my friends on TV shows that you're just like, it's almost no big deal, but it is such a huge deal that you're on this show, hit TV show, and it's going to go, it's going to hopefully keep going, just like our friends over at the Goldbergs, and that's it. So forgive me for even forgetting to mention probably
No,
the
all
most
good, all good,
important thing.
all good. Oh, of course, no, dude. Hey, I would love to talk to you for like the next 4 hours, my friend. We have so much to catch up on. But yes, I'm so super proud of that show. The other project that I want to mention, that I think is very cool, is, and the website's there on scrolling on this right now. It's gluefactoryshow.com is the website. The show is the Glue Factory Show. This is the genesis of this project is so unique and so cool. I'm going to give the Cliff's Notes right now of it. Of a little over a year ago, through a mutual friend, an Australian couple contacted me and they said, "Hey, we had this NFT series we want to release, like meaning a series of art pieces, and we want you to do a show inspired by these art pieces." And like I had an outside understanding of NFTs at the time. Like it's digital art that you own, but like this couple, Sam and Lauren, they really had this fucking crazy game plan where they're animal lovers, especially horse lovers. Horse abuse is rampant in Australia, I guess, because they have all these like backyard horse racing rinks that like they put down horses after every race, and it's really sad. So they were already in the NFT world, like consulting and doing this, and they were like, hey, let's sell 10,000 digital art pieces depicting like comically cartoony mangled horses. And while other projects were doing this, like, you've heard of the CryptoPunks and the Bored Apes, and like I'd heard of this stuff like on the outside, I didn't really know it. They were like, we're going to do this, but we're going to attach content to it baked in from the start, which is very different than these other projects. That was like, you have this and then you can make content from it. So they were going to sell these. Part of the sale was going to go to a horse charity, and part of the sale was going to give me a production budget to make 6 episodes of animation. So 60 minutes of animation, 6 10-minute episodes. They're like, can you create a world inspired by these horses? I was like, it's kind of a tight box, guys, to like have me create a world of like cartoon horses, and the show is not BoJack. It's like, okay. But really quickly, I was like, oh, I know what this can be. And like, I broke the world. I brought in some of like my favorite comedy writers that I've ever worked with, and Katie Rich, Rob Belushi, Colton Dunn from Key and Peele, Jim Wise from Mad. Like I brought in all these people. I told them the game plan was like, if these sell out, we just get a production budget that I get to like show run these and make these. And sure enough, it sold out in 2 hours. Like they went on sale, they sold in 2 hours and made $3.2 million. My budget to make the show was then like $320K to make 60 minutes of animation, which is very low in terms of animation. But I had just finished Chicago Party Ant, which is on Netflix right now. And I knew through an independent model, if you found a cheap enough animator, we could come in for under $320K. And we found a mix of great animators that were able to do this. We wrote 6 hilarious scripts. We got unreal funny friends to voice these. We have like Patton Oswalt and Nikki Sullivan and Naomi Ekperigin and James Adomian and Bobby Lee, Bobby Moynihan, fucking Ted Danson. All these people came out and did voices for these things. There's these 6 episodes that we made and released that you can see on gluefactoryshow.com essentially serve as a proof of concept now. They exist as their own thing, but we are now taking them as a proof of concept to be like, these are 6 episodes of a condensed season 1. We're now going to take this out and pitch it in 2 weeks. We're taking it around the town to be like, look at this amazing writing team, look at this cast, look at this concept. And we're now going to hopefully put the show on TV from this insane start off of being based off of NFT art. And I honestly, like, it went from being a thing of like, I don't know what this is, guys, to like, I am so passionate about it. I told my wife, Annika, I'm like, as soon as American Auto wraps, I just want to go right into the show and start making this because it's so much fun. It's so goofy. It's short format. They're going to be like 10 to 12 minute episodes. We want to be on like, I think like Netflix or somewhere that allows short format. And we want to make these shows. I'm so excited for it.
Do you you have a pitch deck for it? I mean, I probably don't even need it because you already have made these episodes, right?
Yeah, like we literally have a condensed season. So I get to walk into a room with essentially a sizzle reel showing the cast we have, explaining the concept, and the deck is done because we had to create it through the process of the show. Like when I was breaking the world, I have all my notes from that. I just turned it into a Bible, and like everything's done. And we ran the practice pitch last week, and reps are like, go with God. It's ready to go. So we're going to take this out and try to sell this sucker. And yeah, I hope to come back, 6 months from now to be able to tell you that we're in production of it and talk about that show a lot more.
Well, I'd love to be a part of it because I have a couple friends that just signed a first look deal with Sony. So I would love to connect you guys if you're open to that.
Not only would I love that, before you even told me that, I was going to say, I'd love for you to be a part of it and like be a voice of a horse because Vato, we got all our friends to like voice these things and we had to do it. We had no money. So like we had to do it very quickly. Like the studio we used, we're like, they're like, we can fit you in here. So we're like, who are our friends who are in town who come and record? And we still had to follow COVID protocol through SAG. It was like crazy, but like we got all these people so quickly. And now like, the format of the show is, you'll see it when you check it out, but it's very much, they're watching the TV that they're watching within the world is part of it. So like think Beavis and Butthead where like there's channel surfing. So it's just like quick bits. And then there's a larger storyline, but like, it's so much fun to like, we get to bring in all our friends to do like, this is why we want to blow it out into a show now. Cause we have like 100 people we want to bring in to be like, oh, we know this person can do this bit. I know Vato can do this bit. Like I would love for you to do it.
It would be an honor to audition. It's one of those things where I never expect anyone to hand me anything, but I'd love the opportunity to even audition, John. So thank you.
This is what we call in the business offer only. It's straight to offer for you.
I only accept offer only, and that's it. Oh my goodness, amazing. You also mentioned, how are you doing on time though? Are you okay?
Honestly, I'm okay. You see me keep looking off camera here. It's only because I'm looking for the exterminator, but I realize that he's coming at 12:45, so I'm good.
Wonderful, wonderful. You mentioned Chicago Party Ant.
Yes.
Which, if you want to talk a little bit about that, I love the fact that it came out, it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, out of a Twitter account, basically, but then you guys really brought it to life. And I don't know I know Dave Stassen was involved, and you were one of the voices. I don't know if you were also producing or not, but could you talk a little bit about Chicago Party?
Absolutely. So it was one of my good friends at the time, like 3 years ago now, it's 2022. Yeah. Or no, the account's been around for about 5 years. And he started this account just because he was out here in LA and he was lonely, and it like reminded him of home to do like local bits from Chicago, right? So he created this persona of a Chicago party ant, which is it's a woman of a certain age who has a certain haircut. Like we know this woman, like she is. If you've been in Chicago, you've definitely seen her. Anywhere in the Midwest, you've seen her. But there's also like there's a Miami version of her. There's a version everywhere around the world. Really kind of inside baseball Chicago humor at first. The account kind of took off. People like, myself, like I know who it was. My brother knew who it was. But we would like engage with it on Twitter. Then you started having like people like Colbert engage with her and like the famous Chicagoans. And it was like anyone who'd been through Chicago got the bits. It was all like very local bits, very funny. And the account kind of blew up, as far as Twitter goes. I think it got to like 15,000 followers pretty quickly. And then like doubled that pretty quickly. And it just existed. And then this producer, Richie Schwartz out here, wanted to find out who it was. And everyone thought it was my good friend, Katie Rich. Everyone thought it was Katie Rich just because the tone of it, Katie Rich, amazing SNL, Weekend Update head writer for 8 years. The tone of it was very much, I could see it being in her voice. So people thought it was Katie, and Katie knew who it was too. And Katie was like, no, not me. And it was our buddy Chris. So this producer, Richie Schwartz, found out who it was, met with Chris and said, hey, you should do something with this. And I think my company should be the one to do it. So Richie's production company kind of took this under his wing and said it should be an animated show, and said, we have to assemble, we have to create the show. So Chris was one of my partners at the time and other things. And so Chris and Richie met with Ike and Dave, and to kind of as another set of EPs on this, right? And Ike had already engaged with this account a bunch. It could be a story in the pitch of how this all came to life. And Ike and Dave they were like, we're in. We'll be the EPs. Who's going to create this? Who's going to write this? So I was brought in, and we needed just for two reasons. A, because everyone thought it was her to begin with, and it is a fucking female voice. It's the Chicago Party Aunt. We were like, we need Katie Rich on this because this is her bag. Katie, I came up with in Chicago. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met. Truly, no one is funnier as off the cuff, funny joke. No one is faster. No one's funnier. She came in. She was on board. Chris, Katie, and I created it. So we wrote the script. Or we took it out to pitch first. This never happened to me. We took it out to 7 places. 5 of them gave offers. 5 of them were in, and they were like, "We want to do the show." And Netflix was just the most promising pilot commitment, knowing that we'd most likely also get the series. We wrote the pilot. It was super funny. They were immediately like, "Yep, time to go to series." And we, Chris, Katie, and I brought on Matt Craig to showrun. Matt Craig from Chicago, and a ton of animation experience, which is the one thing we didn't really have. And so he show ran, and we just had an amazing team in place. Me, Katie, Chris, Ike, Dave, Richie Schwartz EP'd on it. And we created the show. We got to have a writer's room of all, not all, but very heavy Chicago-centric people. And, it was Bit City in there. It was super fun. We made 16 episodes. The first 8 are out on Netflix right now. The second 8 drops sometime this year, I believe. We don't know yet. And we don't know about a season 2. Animation's a little bit in flux at Netflix right now. But, hopefully we get eyeballs on the second 8 and people watch this thing. It's super funny. This character she's that family member that you have, whether it's your aunt or uncle or, next door neighbor. It's that person that comes over to family events that usually ruins them by saying something, but not in a mean way, and in a very loving way. And they're just unapologetically themselves. And they're also that family member or that friend that if they weren't at Thanksgiving or if they weren't at the birthday, it just wouldn't be as fun. They're the one who.
100%. I mean, we can all picture, and it's such a perfect name, Chicago Party Aunt. You know that it's the aunt. She doesn't have kids, but she's she's the sister that comes over, does everything that you just said. The kids love her because maybe she sneaks some booze or weed or whatever, sleeps around, know. But the references you guys had, especially if you're from Chicago, you're like, oh my God, this is so hilarious. I've been following the account, but then when you guys created it, and then I saw that Dave Stassen and Ike was involved, and you, and I was like, oh my God, how did I not even know about this? But even though I'm only in Vegas, I'm a world away. It's sure. Out of sight, out of mind. So I've actually gotten back into acting, John. So thank you for being part of this journey, and
awesome.
I hope that we absolutely get to work together. Which it kind of reminds me a little bit of this story when I went to Cuba in 2017. This time it was legal, unlike back in the late 90s.
Sure.
And on the way there, we got upgraded to first class on Alaska Airlines. So it's nice. It's not super first class.
Yeah.
But I was watching a movie called Central Intelligence. I watched half of it, and then a month later on the way back, I watched the second half, and I was cracking up. I was laughing. I go, this is one of my new favorite movies. I had no idea that it was your Ike's movie and Dave Stassen's movie until the very end. When I see the credits, I'm like, So there is something very special about people from Chicago and our sense of humor, because it really hit me without even knowing, like, oh, my friend actually
Yeah.
created this or wrote
Yes.
it. Or,
Yes. Yeah.
amazing,
A
amazing.
peer viewing. Yeah. Yeah. That movie's so funny. And you know, that script was written when I was still in Chicago. And that's how, like, you just never know in this town, like, how stuff can be shelved and come back. And, like, I remember reading that script and being like, I was like, I have to write a script. I have to write a movie script because this, and it'll never be as good as this because this is so good. And it made me, like, inspired and intimidated. And I was just like, God, like, so fucking good. They're such a good writing team. And I've read, like, I think, like, 6 of their scripts now. And every one is just, it's so in, like, at least my head of, like, when I'm reading, I'm like, I know exactly how this is going to play out on the screen. It's so funny. They're so clear and concise, and they're hard and funny jokes. It's just like, they're so good. They're so good.
So good. And you mentioned something, and it's true. You never know how long a project is going to take. You even mentioned it earlier, where you're on the set of Superstore, and this guy has the script for, or the idea for, American Auto. This was what, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and then other stories take 10 years, 20 years. Some happen overnight, but even overnight means it's a year, by the time.
It's so long. It's crazy. I mean, with American Auto, I remember being in my fitting for the pilot, which was in March of 2020. And we had just shut down our Chicago party ant room for a week because of COVID. We were like, we think this is bigger. And we shut down a room. We sent everyone home. And I went to my fitting from there. And I remember being in the fitting. I was like, I don't think we're going to film this pilot next week. And they were like, yes, we are. Within 20 minutes of leaving the fitting, it was like, we are canceling everything. And I was like, motherfucker, like, this pilot's so funny. It's gone. And then I was like, it's gone. And by the grace of whatever, we were so lucky. So many shows, just like, specifically at NBC, were just like, they were like, we're shutting down. We're not turning the lights back on. This one and one other one made it to, we didn't shoot the pilot until the following October. And then we didn't get the pickup until the fucking following October. It was, this show has been 3 years in the making. Like, you just, and until we were honestly there the first day and we were shooting, episode 2, I was like, it's not happening. And it's journey, and I'm appreciative of it, but, like, it happened. It just happened. And yeah, you never know, man. Overnight is at least a year here. And there are things that come off the shelf after 15, 20 years. It's wild.
It's wild. It's crazy. So, folks, never give up. For those of you that joined us, we're just wrapping things up. But thank you guys so much for being here. My guest today has been Jon Barinholtz, an old friend from Chicago who's really found some great success in Hollywood. He's trying to figure out a way to stop working and letting his wife do all the work. But, let's get your kids into acting. So that they can pick up some acting gigs, and then you and I can just travel around the world in a van doing a travel show or something.
Well, you're fine. Then I'll have to pay for their therapy bills when they get older because they'll be child actors, and we'll have to deal with that whole thing.
Yeah. It never ends. It never ends, my friend. Jon, buddy, thank you so much for taking this. I really want to talk to your dad as well, and I hope to reconnect with Ike as well. But you just brought back so many memories of Chicago, of my early days in LA, and just the struggle and the hustle. Never give up, man.
Hey, man, so good to see you. I'm going to part with one thing. Are we allowed to talk about drugs on the show? Is that okay?
Not only are you allowed, it's very much encouraged.
The first time I did mushrooms was with you, and I was out here visiting, and it was
Maybe
me.
We shouldn't talk about drugs. I thought this was going to be about your drug experience. I'm kidding. Please. Okay. Remind me, because I think I remember.
It was you. This is 20 years ago now. I don't know. You, me, Ike, Rich Tellerico. And we did mushrooms at the Curson house and that Ike was living in. And I remember being like, people talk about psychedelics as, like, having, like, profound impact. It really was just like, I didn't then go into culture. I was like, I'm going to shroom every day. I did it. I was like, that was great. I don't want to do it again for like 2 years, but I loved it. And And it really just such like a fond memory of like a life-changing experience, and you were part of it. And like I just remember being like, oh, this is great. And everything that's great that comes about with good drugs, in moderation, of course, it was just something that, also has been very important to me in the creative process, where like every couple of years I do something that's like, it's a little bit like focus reframing and mind reshifting of just like kind of remembering your connection to this earth, and that can help, and to other people. And so you were someone who was, you were there at the ground floor at that.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's like drugs, quote unquote. I don't consider that drugs, because it comes from the earth, like marijuana.
Yes.
And I've never been a marijuana guy, but it's crazy to think that the perception has really changed. We're now people. It's recommended that you do that, maybe microdosing, not what we did, but still. I remember a few other, and we never did it that much, but I remember other mushroom stories, and I don't think this would have probably been after that, where it was with Ike, of course, and Myers, Josh Myers, and we were supposed to split it 4 ways, I think.
This is this time.
Okay, so we were supposed to split it 4 ways, but then Josh was like, "Oh no, I'm not going to do it. I'm with Missy, with his girlfriend at the time." Yes. And so we're like, "Oh, okay." We took him at face value, so we split it 3 ways. Yeah. So or 4 ways. We were supposed to probably split it 5 ways.
We split it 5 ways, and there's still supposed to be some left over, and we split it 4 ways. And then Josh came downstairs and was like, "Where's mine?" And we were like, "You said you were going to do it." And I guess he was joking or something, whatever it was. He was fucking pissed, and he's like, "Okay."
And then he had to do all the work because I was like, "I don't feel well," or whatever. He goes, "Here, you're gonna have some orange juice." Yep. He was like Papa Bear, taking care of everyone. I still remember Rich. I think it was that same time where it was like it started, and he was laying on the couch and had a blanket here. 4 hours later, I look over, and the only thing that changed was the blanket was up here. And then I think later when he went outside, I go, "Where have you been?" He goes, "Oh, I was talking to Frank Sinatra." Yes. There was a photo of Frank Sinatra with his pork pie hat, and I guess Rich was there for a few hours just, "Oh, Frank, if I could be as cool as you." So that was
verbatim.
Well, I'm glad it turned out to be a good influence and not a bad.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, so enjoyable. Well, thank you for bringing up my past drug use. I'm not going to show this to my mom because she wouldn't understand the difference. But if you want to get back together and shroom again, man, I would love it. Yeah, everyone, let's give Jon a big round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone that worked here. Thank you so much. It means a lot that you guys are here. So I think on that note, I would love to reconnect. I mean, if we could do this even once every few months, but especially once your show is out, maybe once our show is out once we're working together, I'd love to keep doing this because there's just so much more to cover. But I think this has been a tight almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's been a while. Buddy, thank you so much. What a treat. So great to see you. And you're the greatest.
Please send my salutations to Ike, but also very much to Alan and Peggy. Please tell them that they're in my heart. I can't wait till they move out to LA so I can maybe break bread with you guys again and get together. I also want to say thank you to everyone. Please make sure that you go over to Instagram.com/Jon Barinholtz or just click on any of the links here. If you're listening and you're not on Fireside, you can't click on the links. But there's also GlueFactoryShow.com. If you want to connect with me, it's paulvato.com. And you can buy my new book, the Vato Sutra, basically. It's called the Kama Sucia, which in Spanish means the dirty bed. It's basically a list of all these horrific sex moves, but it's on Amazon now. I can't believe that it got on Amazon. If you go to vato.tv, you can find it there. But more importantly, make sure that you follow Jon and tune into American Auto, which is on NBC, and all of his other projects. So, Jon, again, thank you